In the next 30 minutes, Ghana Bar Association descends heavily on the National Democratic Congress's presidential candidate John Mahama over his controversial pronouncements that the judiciary is being packed with sympathizers of the governing NPP. Tonight, we'll tell you why the Bar Association is describing the comments as unfortunate and condemnable.
I'll say first and foremost, the unfortunate and improper comment. I don't know how he came to that conclusion. People with high influence of the stature of Mr. Mahama shouldn't be saying this.
And Top Story, as always, is brought to you by Vodafone, Further Together and Blessed Sugar. It's unfortunate and condemnable. That's the backlash from the Ghana Bar Association as it wades into the debate surrounding the controversial pronouncements by the presidential candidate of the largest opposition political party, the National Democratic Congress. According to John Mahama, the judiciary has been packed with judges supposedly aligned with the governing New Patriotic Party. Speaking over the weekend at the NDC's lawyers conference, the former president accused President Akufo-Addo of appointing members of his own political party to the bench to influence decisions in their favor. Listen to John Mahama make the claims, arguing that a future NDC government must appoint NDC-aligned persons to balance this situation.
We all know the current situation in which we are when we look at the state of our judiciary. All opinion polling and other surveys that have been done shows that the reputation of our judiciary is at its lowest. And we all know what has contributed to this. There had already been a low level of credibility with the judiciary, and our people have always felt that, there was monetary influence that influenced judgments in both civil and criminal cases. And you remember the ANAS exposure that led to the sacking of some judges. But it's gone beyond just monetary inducements. Now it is also seen that the judiciary is partisan. And a lot of people feel that, justice is not served in many cases. And then we bear the brunt of that. You feel that the judiciary is partisan. And in many cases, some of the decisions are quite bizarre. We do believe that there must be judicial reform. Indeed, most Ghanaians, if you interview most Ghanaians, they believe that there must be some reform of the judiciary in order to bolster its reputation and make it an independent institution that not only Ghanaians, but foreign investors and any person who is in the jurisdiction of Ghana can trust. And so, as part of the discussions you have, we must look at how we, as the executive, and also the members of the judiciary can work together to improve the image of the Ghanaian judiciary. I believe that if the image of the judiciary is improved, it inures to the benefit of those who work in the courts. It inures to the benefit of the judges and all the judicial service workers. And so this must be something that the executive cannot impose on the judiciary, but the judiciary and the executive working together, can work to improve the stature of the judiciary. We have our work cut out for us when it comes to the executive. We must make sure that we restore the trust of our people in the executive, and that people are not going to come into office and money is going to be found under their bed. And at least I can guarantee and assure the nation that I'm not going to be a clearing agent president, and that if people are accused of corruption, we would allow the constitutional bodies that are mandated to deal with those issues to go ahead and do their work and carry out those investigations. And so that I can give a firm assurance about. Let me also say often when we have come out of elections and we have won, everybody wants to go into the executive. Our lawyers, please, I beg you, some of you must be prepared to go onto the bench. And I know that some have very lucrative legal practices. They don't want to leave those practices and go on the bench. But, I mean, you can see what the current president has done. He's appointed the biggest number of judges onto the bench. It's more than 80 towards 100 and counting. He's packed the courts. And we know that they've packed the courts because they want to avoid accountability after they have left office. And so all manner of people who are known to have been partisan, to have been executives of their party, who are in the legal profession, are being leapfrogged into the superior courts and other places. And so we must be prepared as NDC legal persons to also go onto the bench so that we can balance out, the judiciary. Currently, the judiciary is packed with NPP inclined judges.
The words of John Mahama is stoking controversy, and in the last few minutes, the Ghana Bar Association has been reacting to this statement by the former president, who doubles as the presidential candidate of the National Democratic Congress. Shortly, we'll be speaking to the legal team of the NDC, trying to get further understanding to what it is that John Mahama is seeking to put out there. But what exactly is the concern of the Bar Association, and why are they condemning these statements? Joining us now is spokesperson for the Ghana Bar Association, PRO for the group, Xavier Kudje. Thank you. Mr. Kudje, welcome to Top Story. The point that John Mahama makes about a tilted judiciary, tilted much more towards the governing side, is this not, a genuine concern that a politician will raise, knowing that a court ought to be balanced in terms of thought and what the judges think?
Well, Blazer, thank you so much for the opportunity. I think you have decided to put it mildly. Balancing of thoughts, then we should be looking at the academic background of the various appointees and not their political affiliation. Let me begin by saying that statements like this should not be coming from somebody of the standing of President Mahama. He's been president before and is seeking to occupy the high office of president again. I don't know what evidence he has, and I don't know how he came to that conclusion. But one of the allegations like this, it would have been appropriate for him to mention the name. What I know is that nobody will ask of your political affiliation or your membership of a political party before appointing you to be a judge. What they look out for in doing such appointment is your moral uprightness and your integrity, as well as your knowledge of the law. Beyond that, I have not seen anywhere, I have not read anywhere, I have not heard anywhere that you are appointed just because you are affiliated to a political party.
And I believe, on that point, you're speaking solely as a member of the bar. Yes,
I'm a member of the bar, and I am telling you what I know about judicial appointments. Look,
so in terms of perspective, that then does suggest that anyone who's occupied the position of being president before, who has made that political decision of appointing judges of the Superior Court, would be mindful of what goes into the thoughts of anyone who occupies the office, right? You're limited in terms of scope as the Ghana Bar Association, isn't it?
Say that again, I didn't hear that.
I'm saying that it does suggest that you're limited in terms of scope as the Ghana Bar Association, given the fact that your members, as of now, have never been in that position of making the appointments. And to, beyond that, glean or know what goes to inform the decision of a president to appoint persons to the Superior Court.
So appointment to the Superior Court. Appointments are made by the Attorney General, the bar. The nominations are made by the Attorney General, the bar, and the Chief Justice. And this goes through to the Judicial Council, which you have a representation on. Then the Judicial Council will now advise by making representation on those nominees to the president. Then the president will consult Council of State. Then it ends up at Parliament. But the president is not bound by the recommendations made by the Judicial Council. Meanwhile, he cannot also abandon the whole of that list and do his own thing. So he can decide to drop some of them and maintain some of them. But he doesn't also have the right to ignore the total list and go and do whatever he likes. So we are actually stakeholders in this matter. That is why I'm telling you that I do not know of a situation where we have ever considered the political affiliation or ideology of a lawyer.
Yeah, but Xavier Kuja is the reason for which I'm making the point. The president, number one, per the Constitution, is not bound by the advice that maybe the Judicial Council may table in, nor the Council of State. The president will take that decision sole moto, right?
Yes, but he can only take that decision based on a list of nominees presented to him. He can decide to drop them and ask for another list. He can decide to appoint some of them and drop some of them, but he cannot prepare his own list. He cannot do that. President Mahama has ever made appointment, and I believe he didn't just do the appointment on his own. It was on the recommendation of the Judicial Council and in consultation with the Council of State.
I see. So let's see where that evidence is coming from. And Mr. Kuja also joining us tonight is the Director of Legal Affairs for the NDC, Aduji Tamaklo, who was at this same event. Mr. Tamaklo, this is supposed to be an association of NDC lawyers, correct? Is that aimed at, doing some rivalry to the Ghana Bar Association? Just to start off.
Our constitution allows for freedom association.
Yeah.
The last time I checked, the NDC is not a criminal organization. And anybody who associates with it is permitted under the laws of this country to form an association. And that's what has happened. But may I respectfully ask my senior savior on the line? He speaks for the Ghana Bar Association, is that correct?
But precisely.
The same bar that challenged Mahama's appointment to the Supreme Court, is that correct?
Your own interpretation.
Listen, you see, first of all, H.E. John Dramani Mahama has made his point very clear. And what is this point? He is saying that with what has happened with the judiciary in the past years, with the benefit of power, the scale must balance. How is that difficult for my senior savior? How is that difficult for him?
Sorry.
How is that a difficult thing for him? He can decide to take the view that what is going on is not seeing it. Mahama is seeing it differently. So you should learn to respect his perspective.
For the very first time, Aduji, for the very first time, we find a former president accuse the whole judiciary of being packed with, and he uses the word NPP, maybe sympathizers or judges aligned to the political party. Do you have evidence to back his claims when he says there are as many as 80 or 100 of them?
He said one or two executives or previous executives. Did you listen to that? He knew exactly what he was saying. And let me make the point so clear. In fact, what actually prompted this whole thing is that he was encouraging as many lawyers associated with the NDC. That most often, with political power, everybody is rushing to join the executive arm. And you were saying that, listen, there are three coordinates or arms of government that makes it meaningful. And so you encourage as many lawyers associated with the NDC to take up appointments within the judiciary. That is the point he made. And said, look, within the past 7 or whatever years, Mr. Akufo-Addo had acted in this manner. So what exactly is the problem of my senior savior who speaks for the PR? What exactly is their problem?
Okay, Aduche Tamaklo, you are an officer of the court, correct?
I don't know when you say I'm an officer of the court. I'm a lawyer.
Yes, precisely the point I'm making. And is it your estimation that the judges before whom you appear to make your case are NDC or NPP judges, as a lawyer speaking professional?
What should be wrong for a judge openly associated or openly saying I'm NPP or NDC? What is important is your judicial oath. Have you been able to, in terms of fidelity to the law? That's the most important thing. The rest is your conscience.
If that's the case, why then should we be worried if President Akufo-Addo packs the court with as many as 80 or 100 NPP sympathizers, even if they are so-called?
Akufo-Addo's own appointed Minister for National Security met judges, and in the open, not behind the scenes, in the open, made an admonition. Did you hear him? Where was the PRO for the Ghana Bar Association?
Mr. Tamaklo, you would want to answer my question.
Excuse me. When the Minister for National Security openly said, if for the purposes of effective justice delivery, a certain public perception is gaining grounds, and that if all judgment appears to tilt in favor of us. Did you hear him that time?
Mr. Tamaklo, I asked a basic question. I asked if, of course, the judges you appear before in front of the courts are aligned. You said that does not matter. What matters is sticking to the oath of office, or their judicial oath, if you want to call it that way. I'm asking if we have as many, granted that John Mahama's estimation is correct, granted that we have 100 NPP so-called judges or justices of the court. Why should you then be bothered if we are going by your own measure, that they must be sticking to the oath they've made?
President Mahama has stated that he will not act as an ostrich. This is the problem that he is seeing. And he's saying that it requires balance. Take it or leave it. That is the point that he has made. The Ghana Bar Association say they disagree with him. They, as an association, have the right to disagreement. But they cannot stop the former president in stating what he has observed. As I speak to you today, in the US of A, President Joe Biden has set up an inquiry, a commission of inquiry, to inquire into the events around the US Supreme Court. The Democrats have sponsored a bill, judicial reform bill. Have the benefit of reading it. If we want this democracy to grow, we need to confront certain realities. And that's exactly what H.E. John Mahama has said. And the position he has canvassed is a position that represents the position of the NDC relating to how we see how things are going now.
Mr. Tamaklo, I'm just wondering in what practical ways the NDC has suffered injustice as a result of this tilted court Mr. Mahama points to, or perhaps if there are any examples clearly stated and for which you believe that the court must be balanced.
If you can repeat your question.
I'm just asking about practical examples, but I mean just to point and buttress the point that John Dramani Mahama is making. How, in practical terms, has injustice been meted out to the NDC or Ghanaians as a result of this tilted court that John Dramani Mahama is pointing to?
What do you think informed the National Security Minister to say the thing that he said? It's on your.
You are talking about the courts, Mr. Tamaklo.
You say?
You are talking, referring to the judiciary. I'm not talking about the National Security Minister.
No, he spoke about the judiciary, or you didn't hear him?
I'm asking about your practical experience as the NDC, for which you believe that the court is tilted, injustice is being meted out to the people of Ghana. That's the question.
You want me to tell you what you know already. I'm not going to give you that benefit. You can decide to be the ostrich. But where he sits as a former president, right? He had made his observations clear. And he had given the indication that it is not going to be business as usual. It is not going to be business as usual. It's as simple as that.
There are more issues unfolding from this event, which we will take your thoughts on briefly, but just hold on for me. That's Eduji Tamaklo, who's the Director of Legal Affairs for the NDC. Just hold on. Let's get some reactions from Mr. Kuja. Xavier Kuja, your thoughts on what the position of the NDC is? It's just a basic point. Get NDC as much as, NPP judges in our courts.
Things that are being said by people who are not lawyers. He's holding on to that. He made reference to the National Security Minister. We'll give them the benefit of the doubt because they are not lawyers. National Security Minister's comment was made in his capacity as a lay person. Mr. Mahama has made his comment in his capacity as a lay person. But as lawyers, we know that is not what it is. We know that is not what happens. They may have their own perceptions, but let us not get to the stage where we think that there must be some balance. That is where the issue is. Because when you played the soundbite, I heard Mr. Mahama encouraging some lawyers who had identified themselves as NDC lawyers to take up careers on the bench. I have no problem with that. But to say that they should go there so that they will have a balance because the current president has appointed people who are NPP inclined, that is where the question is. The issue is, I have no problem with the statement at all, but the balance of it, or to have a balance, that is where the issue is. Because I know of a sitting High Court judge who is a former member of parliament on the ticket of NDC. He's still sitting. Nobody said that because he was on the ticket of we went to parliament on the ticket of NDC, so he shouldn't sit or they have issues with him. So if Eduji is saying that their judicial oath will guide them, then Mr. Mahama has no consent.
And in fact, your integrity is being questioned as an association, isn't it? When Mr. Tamaklo refers to, precedents where you challenged Mahama's appointment and some of the appointments made to the Supreme Court.
We did not do that by pointing out anything. What we did, he knows the case. We didn't mention anybody's name. We thought the proper thing was not being done. Now the Supreme Court has clarified that. And that case was dealt with together with the case brought by Richie Sky and Mr. That's why Champo. I remember. Even though theirs is on the Electoral Commission issue. So I think that that action of ours rather brought clarity to some of these issues.
There was no ambiguity with the law as at then. There was no ambiguity whatsoever. Don't use clarity.
No, but Godwin, the reason the GBA went to court is that we were under the impression that the provisions in the Constitution were being violated. And the Supreme Court said no, they were not being violated because there's a laid-down process. And it was in that same judgment that the Supreme Court clarified that the appointments are made by the bar, the Chief Justice,
Mr. Tamaklo, you want to provide some clarity on that just before we get the reaction? G. Tamaklo?
Yes.
Yes, you were making a point there. Sorry.
No, I was saying that there was no ambiguity. Let nobody use the excuse of ambiguity. The posturing of the bar has always been one-sided. Has always been, and in fact, that is what has compounded the problem. Look at the speed with which the bar has come out in condemning John Mahama.
No.
Look at the speed. What are we talking about?
Xavier Kuja?
Yeah, Mr. Tamaklo. What I know is that whether you have another group within the bar or not, you are still members of the bar. So when we speak as a bar, we speak for you too. You may have your associations. As you said, you have a right to have different associations, but we are all members of the bar. So that is it. That's all I can say.
But you should be seen, but you should be seen as a bar, and that's, I guess, the import of the point, that you should be seen as a bar to be speaking against both sides in the event that they go beyond board. You seem to be tilted, as Eduji Tamaklo is alleging, towards just one side, and that's the side of the governing party.
Blessed, we have always done that. The last time there was the issue about Jachikwe's comments were being made. I was the same person who condemned the president as well as Domahini. I didn't say that I was leaving one out. No, we have always done that. I must admit it's not everything that we comment on, and it's not everything that we have commented on.
What did the Domahini do to elicit your condemnation? You simply wanted equalization. What is it that the Domahini said, Sylvia, to warrant your condemnation?
Okay.
Please.
This will continue if we're to open the floodgates. But grateful for all of you making your points. Mr. Tamaklo, before we wrap up the conversation, the point about the event that you organized, there's a lot more happening. It's making the rounds as well that the former EC boss, Mr. Farijan, was also present at this event, claims that he's now joined the NDC. Your reactions?
First of all, the distinguished Dr. Kwejo Afarijan never made a statement attributed to him. There is a fake news machinery in place in order to draw public disaffection for the person and integrity of Kwejo Afarijan, decided to put that spin. As members, we wanted a deeper appreciation of our electoral laws, and we felt that if there was anybody with the gravitas, the experience to provide that insight into election and election-related matters, it was the retired former commissioner of the Electoral Commission, the person of Dr. Kwejo Afarijan. In fact, we appreciate him greatly for the service to this republic. He supervised an election transfer from one political party to another. That kind of service is what is required of a patriot, and he has done that. To those who decided to do that fake news, shame on to them.
Okay, grateful. That's lawyer Eduji Tamaklo, Director of Legal Affairs for the National Democratic Congress. Also to Xavier Kuje, who speaks for the Ghana Bar Association. And that's it for Top Story with me, Blessed Suga. Next is News 9.